Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Time Talks with Jeanie. And for this special episode, we're going to talk about something kind of scary in itself, but not really. It is tied to Edgar Allan Poe. I will admit that. It's all about the Doomsday, and especially the Doomsday Clock. Now, the Doomsday Clock, many of us have heard about it. We've seen it advertised on the news or whatever, but not many of us know what the Doomsday Clock really is. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history lesson on what the Doomsday Clock is. Now, if you want to find out more on your own, all you have to do is go to the bulletin.org/doomsday clock, and it'll tell you all about it, who created it, where it came from, and how close to that witching hour of that 12 o'clock we have reached now, once more, let's just go over with the basic information. The Doomsday Clock is a design that warns the public about how close we are to destroying our world with dangerous technologies of our own making. It can be anything from any type of technology. It doesn't have to necessarily be nuclear. Now, nuclear is definitely one of them, but it can be any type of technology that can just cause major chaos and self-destruction, basically. It is literally like a metaphor. It's a reminder of the perils that we address in order to survive on this planet. And that's okay because we all need to be able to survive because we want to. We don't want to float off into space because we just. Now, it was created in 1947. Many of us know what happened in the early 1940s, so we kind of expected this to kind of come out of it. But the greatest danger to humanity came from nuclear weapons at that time, and particularly the prospect of the United States and the Soviet Union that were going towards the nuclear arms race. It is just, it's all about catastrophic disruptions. Anything, I mean, if we want to go back and we want to keep going after 1947, you're going to talk a lot of things that we faced. And many of us, and I'll admit, I like to live in the land of denial. So I don't really pay attention because it's kind of like every time NASA tells us there's an asteroid about to hit, I'm like, let me hope there's Bruce Willis available in Armageddon. So now the co-editor Hyman Goldsmith asked an artist called Marty Langsdorff to come up with a design for the cover of the 1947 edition of the Bulletin, which was the first issue published as a magazine rather than a newsletter. Now, she was known professionally, married to a physicist, and worked on the Manhattan Project in the University of Chicago. Now, they started to use a symbol of uranium, but she listened closely and worked on, something that was more encompassing. That's not going to just all be about the atomic bomb, nuclear weapons, whatever. So it was reimagined in 2007 by, graphic designer Michael Beirut. What was originally uh, displayed on the Doomsday Clock was 7 minutes to midnight because it looked good to her eye. And 7 minutes to midnight, yeah, many of us, when I hear 7 minutes, it's always the whole teenage thing about 7 minutes in heaven. So I kind of associate that with that. Now, many of things, the Doomsday Clock, and the reason that I'm talking a lot about it is there is a specific event that takes place in May that was started by the National Theater in Baltimore, and it has to do with Edgar Allan Poe. I told you, we got to come back around to Edgar Allan Poe. Now, the National Edgar Allan Poe Theater in Baltimore started this back in 2023. And what it's called Doomsday. I mean, come on. Edgar Allan Poe, the man lived tragedy. I hate to say it. Not just he wrote it, but he lived it. Now, Doomsday was taken off of a play on the word Bloomsday, which was a dedication to James Joyce in Ireland for the Irish author to celebrate his accomplishments. So, Alex, excuse me if I butcher your name, Zavastovich. I'm sorry. I'll say it 20 times and I'll always get it wrong. He came up with the idea to create a doomsday. Now, the doomsday that we're talking about now with Edgar Allan Poe, it it has to do with the man's works. And we all know that he gave us the father of the detective. He is known for his horror writing. I mean, come on. The picture behind me, the black cat was one of the I've only read it once in my life because I can't take it more than once because I'm a cat lover. I love cats. Can't take it. But he just lived on the edge of the macabre. So, what better way to celebrate Edgar Allan Poe than to name this celebration of his works Doomsday? And the Doomsday Clock is closer now today than it was back in the 80s. Now, back in the 80s, it was the closest we'd gotten since it first started. And thank goodness that we hadn't had the doomsday clock way back before, because if we had, then it would probably have been really close to midnight around the Civil War, even earlier. We look at the Revolutionary War, then even earlier than that, we got the Black Plague. So you see, the doomsday clock is just a metaphor. It's a metaphor for catastrophe. So, what better thing to represent Edgar Allan Poe than a metaphor for disaster? Because his writing and he himself, even today, always meets out our macabre and wants us to face the horrors of life. So, on today's Time Talk, that's just a little bit of history about the Doomsday Clock. Like I said, just go check it out, and you'll hear more about the National Doomsday, or excuse me, International Doomsday for Edgar Allan Poe later on, because surprise, surprise, 6 Degrees of Poe might be getting in on this Doomsday project. So please stay tuned, and I hope you've enjoyed my little history lesson on the Doomsday Clock. So until next time, this is Jeanie, and I'm Poe out.